Whoops.
What happened?
I tried changing the setting on something. No cap. Just we're going live now, boys.
Yeah. I depend on that little intro because I'm messing around with something. All of a sudden, I'm like, okay, I got to drag this. Wait, I'm here.
Wait, what happened there?
Good thing I had my shirt back on.
Holy cow.
Oh,
Oh my
goodness.
gosh, that's just so funny. And
That
oh
was.
look, I was gonna say we lost we were back at the old background too. It just I really threw us for a loop on that one.
Wait,
So
does that mean we would have had the lion today?
oh, we might have had the lion for all I know.
There's a strong possibility Mark would have gotten his lion roar today.
Yeah. Today is a day, all right. That's sure is the case. Like, boy, yeah, I screwed up my whole live stream. Oh, good morning, everyone, and it's so good to see everybody in the chat today. We've got Fernando, Andrew, Girl Meets Rugby, Jack. Oh, so good to see everyone. Jason Romans is here. What's up, Jason? How you doing, buddy?
And somebody is calling out that he has a star. What does that star mean?
Jason has a star. I don't know. Jason's Romans. He is a star. We'll just call him that.
Doesn't that mean that he's joined your channel?
That could be. I don't know how these
You
things
set
work.
this up. I'm gonna go through, set this up. Hey, okay, yeah, I'll pick this little star thing. I don't know what it's gonna do.
This stuff is yeah, I did part-time on the side. I'm doing my best I can, everyone.
3 minutes in, and we're learning a lot today.
But every time I see Aaron, I love seeing you come every time, but every time I see your name, I'm reminded of the Key and Peele sketch with the substitute teacher. Are you familiar with that one, Kevin?
No, I'm not.
Oh, no.
Oh, strategic familiar with who this advanced comedic group is.
Oh. God bless it. We are. We're struggling today, boys and girls.
Here we go. We're done again.
Yeah.
This happened last week.
Oh my God, I could hear that over and over again.
Okay.
Are you out of your goddamn mind? Blake.
Well, where's the Aaron? Must be here.
Now, D nice.
Oh, that's Dennis. Or Denia Dice. Come on. Oh, here. I'm sorry.
The things you keep clicked up. Okay.
Oh, gosh. Bless it all. All right. So,
all right.
Sorry, that's really off topic. So, but
yeah, that Chris Smith loved it too, right? It must be a Chris thing.
Yeah. It's it's his nickname.
Oh, okay. Now I got the tie. Now I remember the tie back with Aaron.
Yeah,
in the chat here.
Yeah.
By many.
Oh gosh. Well,
gotta try to get a little on track again. Monte J
on track.
Passed the beta exam of DP 700.
Well, congratulations, Sanjay. That's fantastic news. Good job. Good. It's good seeing everybody, and we are let us get back on track. Today we are talking about deployment pipelines and the latest update in deployment pipelines. Kevin, I think the first time deployment pipelines came out was like 5 years ago, maybe 6.
Has it been that long? Maybe.
Yeah. Yep.
My only claim to fame is I did a video with Adam, a guy in the cube, about deployment pipelines. So.
Shut up, really?
Yeah, that's out on their site.
Well, we're not going to watch that.
No, that's not what. No, we've already filled our YouTube time, but it's nothing. We'll talk a little bit about that, but yeah, it was. I'm going to keep touting that feather. It's my claim to fame.
All right, then nothing wrong with that. That's fantastic. But Kevin, what are deployment pipelines?
So deployment pipelines It is a pipeline process that helps you do deployments. No, I hate definitions like that.
Okay.
So it's a process to move your code from one workspace to another, which basically becomes your environments, right? So if you do dev or pro dev development, you want to have a development workspace, a test workspace, and a production workspace. And how you move the code and keep your code objects in sync can become quite challenging. Very hardcore dev or pipelines can be done in things like Azure DevOps using, they have a concept called pipelines, deployment pipelines and releases in there. GitHub has, I think it's GitHub Actions. I haven't used it a whole lot, but I'm pretty sure it's the actions that do that. And so there's different methods to move your code through. So Microsoft within the Fabric Power BI infrastructure has also put in these deployment pipelines. It's right within the interface, and they're easier to use than it is like Azure DevOps. I think Azure DevOps has so much more flexibility because you could write what's called YAML code and pretty much call out to do anything. I'd like to see some of that come to these deployment pipelines, but for a good 70 to 80% of the use cases that we need for moving code around, I think deployment pipelines work just fine. Now, in the Power BI side, reports and semantic models, like you said, they've been around 5 years or so. They work great. I love it. I don't think I do anything anywhere with just reports and models that I don't use deployment pipelines. On the data engineering side, I think they have some growing up to do. There's some challenges we'll talk through today with things like pipelines and resetting the default data lake and things, or the lake house connected to a notebook. It's possible.
Hang
But
on.
there's some stuff that's not
I like all this
going way too
details we're
deep,
getting
huh?
into, but let's rewind and let's go even more basic. Why the heck do I care about how I do my deployments? Right? Like, hey, I'm accustomed to just, I work in Excel day to day. You know, when I work in Excel, I save it to file, I share it with people. That's my job. Why wouldn't I do the same thing in Power BI?
Well, you could, but when you
Mhm.
have to make a change to that and you want somebody to see that change and you're not 100% sure that the change meets what their requirements are, do you want to overlay the report that let's even say it's a small number of people, 5 people are going to that report, and depending on the value every single day, right? Or the values, the data that's in there. And whoever controls that group has come to you and says, I want you to add this or change this. And you add it or change it, and you believe you understood the requirement. You put something out there, and then you overlay it, and all of a sudden it's wrong. Now you got 5 people coming at you going, this is wrong. What did you do? Why'd you change it? But if you start out in a development workspace, a place for yourself, you could publish that, meet with them, show it to them, validate that it's correct, watch that it's correct. And when they say it is, you click one button that moves it to the workspace that they're using. And now you're guaranteed that because it's the same set of code, that the change was done correctly. So that's why, right? Is you want to move up a little bit on the just ad hoc development to a next step into what a lot of people are calling pro development.
That is, I think that's the best answer, right?
Mhm.
It's, hey, maybe you just live in production all day, every day, and that's just your world. And maybe for your organization, that's fine. And you know what? God bless, right? That's fine. Continue to run and operate in production, living in the fire, because who the heck doesn't like to live in the fire?
Mhm.
But maybe there's a day where all of a sudden, like you said, living in the fire causes a big problem where, crap, I put out an issue or I made a change and it caused all these problems in my company, right? And that's when you should pick up the mantle of going to deployment pipelines and adding that into your process. And the
Yeah.
nice thing with Fabric pipelines is like it is the low code version of the DevOps deployment pipelines that you're
Right.
talking about, Kevin, right? So
Yeah.
it is your, hey, I want to get started doing deployment pipelines, and I want to keep this as easy as possible, knowing that if I have to go more complex, I go to a DevOps pipeline, a more like engineered solution.
Right. And even asking the question, because I've had this, hey, this change doesn't seem to be in this environment. Are you sure it got there?
Yeah.
Right. And you go, well, let me, you do the same thing. That person that's bringing you the question, I'll go open the report. Oh, it doesn't look right. I guess not. Well, because you could see the history through deployment pipeline, you could actually see, oh, I could see that there's a difference, or I did deploy it, or here's my notes of when I deployed it. Here's the objects that did get deployed, right? And I've had times where people have come to me going, well, when did this change? When did that change? Right. And because you have deployment history, and if you're using something like a Git repository and you're keeping
Mm-hmm.
source control, now you got multiple ways of trying to look at it and go, oh, I changed that in December and deployed it in January. So yes, I put that change in, and you can make connections and answer those questions.
Yeah, and Kevin, you're exactly right.
Christina got us on that one. Yes.
Yeah, repping each company. Yes, yes, yes.
I'm making Jello modes, and Chris is implementing Fabric solutions. Mine's got a stapler in it.
But yeah, you're exactly right, and I would say one of the biggest things I've seen companies underfund and underinvest in is having a robust data pipelines and DevOps engineering, because they'll dump DevOps work onto just every engineer and go ahead and do that. And engineers can, and they learn how to do those things. But if you're in a larger organization, investing in a strong DevOps engineer can really help you with all sorts of regression testing and rollback capabilities and integration testing, right? Like, you could get some really sophisticated deployments that will like take everything from one environment, deploy it into like a quasi environment, run it,
Yeah.
test it, and then promote those objects into production, right? Like that. I mean, those objects in the production space will suddenly just merge up in, right? And you can codify all of that stuff, even like semantic models. Like I've had a DevOps engineer uh, as part of the deployment process because it was a financial environment balancing out, and or as a financial and sales environment where balancing and tying out was critical, where all deployments deployed to a brand new, we called it a dark production workspace that nobody had access to, had access to all the production environment. It would run, it'd load everything in the semantic model, and that could take an hour or two, and they would run through an hour or two of tests, like deep validation tests on it. And then when that passed, it would back up that model, store that data itself into ADLS-G2. It would do a hot swap into production where it would deploy the code and deploy the backup of the model. So like it would be instantaneous for users where they wouldn't even know that something happened. It would just swap it out. You could do all of that in DevOps.
Yeah.
Deployment pipelines is not that sophisticated. It's a step along that direction, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? So it's like you said, it's the low code version, right? And so with that, there are going to be some very sophisticated things that you'll probably never be able to do. Now, I did notice somebody in the chat, I think from the LinkedIn side, brought up a statement that there is just a lot of challenges with it. And I would say there are challenges on the data engineering objects that are new to the Fabric side of everything. And there are, yes, I totally hear you that there are a lot of limitations. And yes, Microsoft is definitely working on it. This is things that we hear stuff all the time, different meetings that we're asked to attend and give advice and everything. It's definitely in the works. Is it going as fast enough as I would like? No. And I bring it up all the time, right? but it's going on with as fast as they can move it. And, I think it's going to happen. And there are things you could do. And there's people that have put good articles out there that kind of help you work around some of those solutions or some of those challenges as well. So,
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
read
And
all of what Andy said. I respect, let's see.
oh yeah. Andy said, in conjunction, oh no, wrong one. Boy, keep it coming. Making the leap to DevOps is a lot of work, but it's worth it. The change is not so much technical. That part is relatively easy. The hard part is the cultural shift. This is
That's a good
very true.
statement. Yeah.
Yep. But the big advantage of this is, especially if you're doing the DevOps side, the pro engineering side, the old world pre-DevOps and DevOps testing and integration meant, hey, we're going to take our systems offline Friday night at 5 or 6, and like how'd it go? You took them out. You say you're taking it out by 5. You give people a buffer of an hour, right, to prep and get ready for your code deployments. You start doing your code deployments at 5 o'clock on Friday night. Those code deployments run, all night long. Jobs, processes run, till 3 or 4 in the morning, where you've got people running and watching that. Then at 3, 4 in the morning, validation processes come in, sign-offs start to occur around 8 a.m. the next morning. You're like trying to get a hold of business users to sign off on Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Right. And it was this drawn out weekend affair, right? With DevOps, because you can build in the regression testing, you can 100% get to the point where you are doing deployments at any point in time, without having that fear that, I could take down the world, right? And that's a big deal. And the reason why I like this, why I love deployment pipelines, and it's specifically to Andy's point, is that this helps bring about a cultural shift. So it's not just IT that does deployment pipelines and has a mentality of, I develop it, I test it, and then I move it to production. But it's even the citizen developers out there that have those capabilities, right?
Yeah. The more that it helps do that shift and get that understanding, because I see the same thing. Even though we start with the low code stuff of the deployment pipelines, conceptually, people do sometimes have this hard challenge of, well, what do you mean? I just publish the report and I'm done, right? And this low code part gets them started to think through some of it, right? And if you introduce a test site that, or a test workspace that the company is, for whatever reason, never had that before, right? Now you're introducing the cultural change as a simple step to them to say, you're going to go here and approve it before I move it forward. And then, like you said, eventually move up to, you're building all the code out in Azure, the Azure DevOps deployment pipeline, their pipelines, with automated checking in there, because they'll go, oh, well, it's too slow for me to get in and I have to look at it, right? Even if it's a day, but no, here, I could build these tests. And if anybody hasn't seen it before, look up John Kursky. He has, I don't know how many articles about getting started with DevOps and going from the simple to this more robust, he's got a good platform on it. Kevin Chant, who we had on, about a month or so ago, shared his repository with Azure DevOps, ways to get started. So there's ways to get going. This, the low code one is a way to help learn the concepts and see what's available.
Yeah. Kingsley's got a question, Kevin. As we leap from Azure, are we going to be getting any new dev from the Azure DevOps platform? Or do you think like the development of the DevOps in Azure DevOps is going to drop off, and we're going to see this all in Fabric?
It's an interesting question. I would say from the Azure DevOps platform, it's pretty mature, right? And I'm not sure how much more they're going to have to change it out or build out. I'm sure there's things that they have to build in, right?
Let me jump in on that one.
Well, let me finish my thought.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
But
Fine.
With the ability to use YAML, right? And you could pretty much build out anything that you want. Now, can they add some features to make that easier? Can they add some type of better hooks in order to get it directly into fabric? I think that would come up, but you know, to 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 add more into the actual platform itself, I don't think that's needed. But you have a different thought.
I'm going to say this is how this is going to go. The deployment pipelines in Fabric is going to continue to be the low code option for managing deployments for a long time in the future. And when I say a long time, I would imagine it's going to be there for a minimum of 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Alongside that, what we're going to see is inside of the Azure DevOps space is additional advanced support for Fabric objects and Fabric capabilities will continue to expand in the same way that we're seeing modules in Visual Studio or not Visual Studio, yeah,
Visual Studio Code and
Visual Studio Code get added and created for Fabric. We're going to see similar modules, similar capabilities at the real high technical level be created and enriched in the Azure DevOps side for the pro code developer. So the pro code developer, from everything I could see and everything I know, is going to be continue to be on the Azure DevOps side of the house. But that low code developer, which should be good for lots of people and get better for lots of people, is going to continue to move forward, be enriched, and maybe in 10 years it will have assumed and will reach parity between like the pro DevOps side and the deployment pipelines. But my
I don't
guess
know that
is,
it'll reach parity.
well,
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
yeah.
Like,
I think you're right, and I think that's what how I was trying to communicate my stuff is the platform itself, right? On Azure DevOps side, you could do pretty much anything you want if you write your own YAML code.
yep.
Will there be modules that will be added to the platform to better, right, to have some type of template or ease how we're working with it in Fabric? I hope so.
Right.
Right? I mean, and that's what we've seen with every technology around. Like, so they didn't have to change the Azure DevOps platform because you always have the YAML code, you code it yourself type of thing. But do they add modules to make it easier? Yes. Now, if we consider that changing the platform, in my opinion, that's not changing the platform. That's making the clicks in the platform easier. So,
Yeah, I agree with you.
tomato.
Yep. Now we're about to dive into like why we're even talking about this today, but I want to take a minute and say, hey, everyone, please, if you could go on YouTube and hit that like button, smash that thing. That really does help out. It helps show YouTube that not only do we have people here watching it, but you're not bots that are just out there like, viewing this, that you're actually interacting with it. So make sure you hit that like button. And the more comments we put in, the better. So like this communication that you're doing is actually super helpful out there. And to that end, I want to know, because we're about to get into the new advances in deployment pipelines. But before we do, what the question of the day is, let us know, have you tried out the new UI in deployment pipelines at all? Are you in there? Are you using it? Did you go in and test it out? Are you using the old deployment pipelines? You tried out the new one and you've gone back. Like, where are you at in your journey? Have you tested these things out before? Right?
Yep. And I just changed one this week, and maybe I could bring up because I noticed a little surprise to me. So
Oh,
we'll
okay.
get into that.
Yeah.
It's a teaser.
All right. Teaser. But let's talk about why the heck we're here, right? So going over my desktop, going over my
Yeah.
desktop, want to talk about, there's some new deployment pipelines. A new UI has come out that you can go in and use. Basically, it creates the ability to really customize your workflow so that it's not just dev test prod like we had before. Okay. This makes things much more intuitive and gets it much easier for people to get up and running with it. Because, well, frankly, we know that there's lots of things out there that will have some like changes to this. And we know a lot of people use things differently here, right?
Hmm.
There is a little toggle here. So if you're not seeing the new capabilities, there's a toggle there, and I think we'll be able to test and show that to you guys. Uh, but you know, realistically getting in and starting to work with the deployment pipelines is pretty easy. A note, oh, that's interesting, Kevin. This requires a capacity,
Yes.
right?
Yes, it is not available with a pro only license.
Yep.
So you have to have a capacity, right? So a fabric capacity, or if you're only doing reports and models and you're on PPU,
Hmm.
you could do that too,
Yep.
right? So it does work under the PPU license.
Right. So, but enough talking. Let's all, you know, and enough like going over it. But let's actually take a look. What are we talking about here? If I go into deployment pipelines, if you haven't created one before, you're greeted with this window, which basically runs you through what is it like. Okay, we're going to create a new pipeline. Wait, let me zoom in. We're going to create a new pipeline. We're going to
Mhm.
assign the workspaces to it. We're going to develop and test our content, and then we're going to share it with users. Okay. I mean, I think that's a little simplistic and not necessarily exactly how that goes, but you know, hey, oh yeah, the star is Jason is a member. If you want a star, you too can become a member for the challenge. Jeez, gotta get better with this one. All right, so let's actually create this pipeline. Something to note though, a workspace can only be attached to one pipeline. Okay,
Correct.
so if you have a workspace on a pipeline, you won't be able to add it um, onto an existing or a new pipeline. Okay, so let's see. Here we
Which
go.
which kind of makes sense, right? Because, you know, how
Yep,
would you merge code changes from two different places or from, into one? So
right. That
that
makes a ton of sense, right?
yeah, that's not really a restriction. I think that's a necessary feature.
Yep, yep, yep. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to call this deployment pipeline. We're going to call this our SMB pipeline because this is going to be part of, and if you're a member of the video, if you're a member of the Kratos BI, you've got access to my existing new videos that are coming out that will be out soon. I've got several steps to making fabric easy that are available today for members only. They'll be released next week sometime for everyone else. But like Jason, he has access to all these contents. I'm going to be doing a series on making fabric easy, and part of that is designing fabric for a small business. So we'll be highlighting that. So, all right. So we're gonna,
Small medium business.
yeah, small medium business. That's right. All right. So,
And your definition of small and medium may vary.
yes, that's true. All right. So we're gonna go to an SMB pipeline. Well, you
Hon
know, I have the Dunder
honestly, I've never
Mifflin.
I've never met a small medium business because they all feel that they're they're a big enterprise regardless.
Well, everyone is, right?
Yes.
I do have oh, look at this. That's a new
Wow.
UI.
Yeah, that's a new prompt I've seen come up for
Oh,
saying create your
I
task force.
literally did a video on this yesterday and it didn't look
And
like
now
that. So
and now it changed.
yay!
Yay.
Do I re-record or not? You know, God knows.
Camtasia, splice it in.
Right. Right. Oh, no way.
That honestly, that could take me longer than re-recording.
Right. So here's Kevin's Dunder Mifflin sales information. So um sorry, I'm
And
back to our
only paper, not beats.
right. Yes, yes, yes. All right. So we've got here's our first SMB pipeline. Actually,
But
it
what if
prompts
what
us.
if what if I don't have test? I only have development and production.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great point, and that's what we're going to talk about. Like, okay, we can get rid of that, so we can have
Mhm.
a development environment and a production environment, so we don't have to
Right.
have those additional environments, right? So I could create this and
Or
continue.
you could rename them to dog and cat.
I certainly could. I don't know if I can
I don't think
anymore.
you can. Well, yeah, I
Yes,
think
I
you can.
can.
Yeah,
Look at
you can
that.
still change the name. You know, Beats. Yeah, you could have a Bears environment, a Beats environment, Battlestar Galactica environment.
Bears and Beats.
Yeah, Bears Beats Battlestar Galactica. That's one of Dwight Schrute's statements.
Bears. Can I add another part in here once it's
I
created?
think under settings. No, let's see. So you can't add another stage. Do the three dots after Bears right now. Can it say add a stage?
No. No.
I guess you have to set the stages only at the very beginning. I'm not
Yep.
seeing a way to add a new stage at this point.
Yeah. So you would delete and start over, But let's not confuse things for people watching this. Let's call this
Yeah.
dev. And let's call this production. Okay. So while we can do it, let's make sure we keep these things as easy as possible. Now,
Oh, did you notice on that interface the little set this to public? So
what
there's a
is that?
button there. Okay, so when you tie a workspace to a deployment pipeline,
Uh-huh.
you'll see a tag on the work after the workspace name telling you which environment it's tied to.
Oh.
And the one or more that you say set it to public, it won't show that tag, right?
Mm. Okay.
So it's kind of nice if like you want everybody to just see the workspace as in what we've always seen it.
Okay.
Sometimes even on production, I like to have that tag on there because then somebody that happens to go into the workspace, they'll see that little production tag, right? I typically have a naming standard and deployment pipelines work this way as well. Your all three workspaces start with the same name. And
Mm-hmm.
then dev has a bracket dev on it, test has a bracket test, and then production has nothing on it. And if you just and maybe we'll get here in just a minute. Yeah, you might want to use your trial if you're going to have
No,
fabric
no, no.
on.
This is
Oh,
my
this is
SMB analytics.
okay.
So my SMB analytics, I have this set up with, and you can see it in the video. Simplest deployment you can do is 2 environments, a fabric environment and either
Okay.
a pro or a premium per user analytics environment, right? And then that allows me to define MB analytics as my production workspace for reporting,
Mm-hmm.
right? Oh, can I change the name on this?
Yeah, under settings.
So I want this to be my analytics pipeline, right? So I've
Okay.
set that up. Now,
Hit your check mark to make sure it finishes.
okay, check mark, done. Now, can't I?
Yes. Click on dev.
Yep,
Don't not the drop down. Just bring the
yep.
You see down below now it's saying, hey, you could deploy from production if you just click the very top checkbox to get everything.
Ooh.
This is going to say, okay, hey, everything I've been doing is production. How do I get started with a dev? This is it. You got two things that's going to come down, and it's going to actually, for this first time to get everything set up, going to move from production down to dev. You could
Okay,
only
deploy
do
back
this
to the
one
stage.
time,
Yep.
right? You could only go back, call it backwards on the arrow one time.
Oh, and it's automatically going to create my workspace.
It's automatically going to create the workspace, and you're going to see that I would expect it's going to put bracket dev in the workspace name.
It did. Boy, you're smart.
Or I've done it before. Right. And if we were able to add in between, which there's got to be a way, then when you push it up, it would automatically put test or whatever the step name is. And if you here's another thing that I noticed. If you right now you have production, leave production in check like you have it.
Mhm.
Notice the workspace that you're currently in. If you go over to your left side, yeah. So that's telling you you're pointing to analytics. Go back to your pipeline
Yep.
because this at first really confused me. Click on dev just to bring it in scope.
Mhm.
Look at your workspace that you're in, the workspace tab again that you just did. Up. Yep. Look at that. It switched you to
Oh,
dev. I don't
look at
remember
that.
this doing this before, right? Because
Now
when
I'm in production.
yeah, what I had to
Now I'm in
what I
dev.
would yeah, what I would keep doing is click on the
Production,
workspace name to change it. Now it's just whichever
dev.
stage you have in scope, it's switching your context to that.
Yeah, and so when Fernando's asking a good question here, what does he mean by environment? We're talking about workspace. Which workspace
Mhm.
are you in? Are you in the production workspace, which all your users have access to, or are you in the dev workspace, which is just you have access to whoever's you currently provide access to?
Yep. Yeah,
I
so
like this.
that was definitely something I learned this week. I kinda like it. Sometimes I don't because I forgot that I clicked on it and I got into the wrong workspace.
Okay.
But, I think, we'll get used to it. Now, this is
Mm.
where if you go back, we're in production, go back to your workspace.
Yep.
You'll see next to the workspace name up top that it's got this production tag,
Oh, look at that.
okay? I thought that you had it configured in your pipeline that that would have been public and that tag wouldn't have been there. I thought that's what that was doing, but I could be wrong. Let's go back, look at your pipeline,
Mm-hmm.
and we look at the settings for that. Yeah. Okay. Then I was reading that incorrectly.
Well, what does setting as public mean?
By default,
By default, the final stage of the pipeline is made public. A consumer of a public stage without access to the pipeline sees as a regular workspace without the stage name and deployment pipeline icon, the workspace page next to the workspace name.
yeah. Well, that's not working.
Well,
Because we see the icon up there.
but I'm I am not I'm the admin of this workspace.
Oh, did I miss that?
Yeah,
Is that
it
if you're
said a consumer of a public
consumer?
stage without access to the pipeline sees it as a regular workspace.
Okay. So
So
if you have
I
access
should be able to go into my
your
other
your
profile,
John
my
Doe.
data god profile.
Yeah.
Here, let me share it with him. So let's see. Nope. Manage access, add people, data
Yeah.
god.
Right. Because because Chris's other profile has access to the pipeline, so he still sees the tag of production up there. But he's going to add somebody that is
That should
not an
hopefully
admin.
not have that. Yep.
And
Okay. SMB analytics. This ID got it. I could
they don't,
see.
yeah, you got the report, you don't see the tag up there.
I
Okay,
don't
that
see
makes
the
more sense
tag,
now.
and I don't see the I don't see. Oh, I don't see the model in there either. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that's how that worked for viewers. I think that's good actually. Why would a viewer care about the model? So,
Yeah, probably the viewer would only see it if you also gave build access to that model,
yeah, that makes
right?
sense. Yep.
But if there's nothing else, if they don't have build, they can't create a report, they can't do anything. So they're only seeing an object that they could interact with.
So we can see. Um. Not that.
Take a screen
We
break.
could see admins see the production tag that it's a
Hmm.
production pipeline. Readers or viewers just see the workspace name They don't see anything right here. So we have that definitively tested for all of you who would like to say, I want to try and test this myself. So,
and that's why I like having that switch, because right, I get a lot of people that go, well, are you sure you gave me access to production? Well, okay, here we'll let the tag be shown, and for sure it's production. But it's I like configuration.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. And you kind of hit on this, and I really do. If you're going to manually be naming things, your production workspace should not have a moniker for dev, test, or prod in it. It should just be what it is. Although it's interesting now, if I go to my workspaces, oh, look at this. I have to go in and find my SMB.
The dev one.
Where'd it go?
You might need to do a refresh.
Yeah.
The workspace stuff caches a whole lot.
Right. So I've got my dev here. Oh, it did say as part of it automatically added as the subdomain. That's what I was trying to see, but it didn't look like it was. I must have needed to do a refresh, but it's right there. Look at that. Oh, that's cool. So
nice.
it automatically puts it in the domain that you're operating and working in. So that's nice.
Okay. I didn't know that. That's nice.
Yeah, agreed. I like that quite a bit. Although that's weird. My workspace is a trial workspace. Are they going to delete my trial workspace or my workspace?
You assigned your my workspace to your trial.
I think that's the default, right? Unless you change your my workspace to go to a specific capacity, it'll automatically be there. But that's really off topic.
That mine's on. Hang on, I'll look. Anyways,
all right.
Yeah, but my tenant, my workspace is not in the trial capacity.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to see. I don't think I did something there, but
yeah, there is a thing when you're creating a capacity. You could say make this the default capacity for workspace for all workspaces, and then it's going to change that even for the my workspaces.
I didn't do that for my trial capacity. That's weird.
I know. I guess it shouldn't do it for when you're doing the trial, but yeah, it's.
I don't know. I've been in
the day you ran it, there was a little bug in there.
Whatever it is, so like, who knows what's screwed up in my environment? Because all right, now we just went through the super simple, real basic deployment pipeline for an SMB. Can we talk through, Kevin, at a higher level? What would a more robust deployment pipeline look like, and why is it good to have a customized pipeline as part of that?
Okay, well, I mean, besides adding the additional environment steps, there is a concept inside the deployment pipeline that has rules, configuration rules, right? And they very much are limited to a few objects today, right? But let's talk about when you're moving between environments. And let's start off very simple. You have report A, and it's connected to semantic model. Let's even say it's semantic model B, right? Let's say you've done this step that you do thin reports and you separate reports and models. So they're in a whole different set of workspaces, and we're going to do dev, test, prod. So we have 6 workspaces now, right? If you're imagining with me.
Oh, you know what? Let's stop imagining. Let's go in and let's actually build it.
Okay.
All right.
I kind of started building it too, but go for it.
So this is my advanced pipeline. All right. Dev, test, prod is kind of a basic one. What if I wanted to add a new one? Where do I add a new one?
The plus sign in between.
Oh, okay.
Right there.
Okay.
So dev to integration.
Dev to integration. Right.
And now we got 4.
Right. So now we've got 4. So
And I think
why
you could
would
have
I
what, up
have
to
a
8
dev?
or 10 or something like that.
What's that?
I think you could have up to 8 or up to 10 or something to that effect.
Right. So what? So testing, UAT, right? And
Mhm.
why might a company or a team do something along these lines? Right? What's the
Uh,
advantage of having that? Oh, I didn't change that name.
well, I
Integration.
mean, it could be different people doing sign off at different times,
Yep.
right? Development is just purely your development team, and then you move up to integration, and you have a bigger development or a different part of your development team that's looking at that. Then you
Mm-hmm.
move it to test, and you're bringing in your first level of, I'm going to call them trusted business users, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not everybody, and just those couple people are going to come in, and you're giving access to them there, and they're going to do the first sign off.
Well,
Right?
I'd actually say that the times where I've seen a test get differentiated from user acceptance test is this is the test environment that would potentially have access to like a full data set, right?
Yeah,
Where as a developer or
you got developers have a very small data set.
right,
Integration might be a little bit more
a little bit bigger, but now you're like integrating all of the developers' work into one place so you can make sure nobody's stepping on anything at that
right.
level. So this
It's
is a
it
code based testing integration point.
right,
But then when you get
and
to the
you have known results that come out of it that may not be your production results, but it's something you
correct,
could go back to.
right, you can easily baseline that you haven't squashed anyone else's development.
Mhm,
At this layer, this is where you start to go to that full data set. You do your runs, you do your performance tests, you make sure that
mhm,
your data loads are going to load in an acceptable time. You do all of this in a lower environment before you get to users, because you probably have, let's say you've got 10 people on a team or 20 people working on a team, making sure that the stuff that, as it goes in, it's going to load and work and be performant, can be really difficult. And that's where you have this additional layer. And then the last piece that you have, because you want to push it out, you want to do as much of your due diligence as possible, you have your user acceptance testing. And that's where Kevin, uh,
yeah. Well, and sometimes in test, I bring in a couple of trusted users. Right? So, but
really.
yeah, you're differentiating tests to be kind of a lot of performance testing and other stuff, and
Hmm.
I kind of do that in there. But also, there's some people that you go, I have this very, like 4 or 5 people that are the primary ones looking at it. I try to get them in as early as possible, and then UAT opens up to, oh well, I've had 20 people that say, oh wait, I want to see it. I want to see it before it goes to production too, right? So that's
Yeah,
also
this is
why.
where my formal sign off would occur.
Yeah, yeah, but I've been at some places to where they just can't be disciplined enough, and they go, "Well, I'm still gonna have everybody look at it here," or a lot of people.
Yeah,
And inevitably, what do
me-
I run into is they get a bunch of managers or salespeople or whatever that they go, "Yeah, I'm gonna let's let them look at it in UAT." Okay, but here's what's gonna happen. When we go live in production, they're still gonna be looking at UAT, I guarantee you. And then all of a sudden we stop, like we're putting the next change in the UAT and they're yelling at us, why did this break? It's like, it didn't. Why are you still looking at UAT? We trained you to go to production when we said it was a production release.
yeah.
Anyways, off my soapbox again.
Well,
That
I will say,
happens every time to me.
yeah, I'll say that is why I only like to insert people as late in the testing process as I can, so that we can easily go from a user acceptance testing right
Yeah,
into production. Like I want user accepting testing to happen in 1 week, then I want my production deployment to happen the absolute next week or the next day or the next minute, right? The second we
yeah.
get sign off, I want my
I'm,
production environment deployed and this up and running so that I can keep people out of here and keep people in the new environment.
I'm right there with you, but there's many times I've lost that discussion. Why can't I put more people here? And I give them that reason, and then they go, "Oh, but I could live with that. That's okay." And they're it's like, all right, you're writing the checks. So
Well, I'll say the reason I've run into that is because there wasn't the fast turnaround, right? Like
yeah.
if I get my initial sign off and tomorrow it's here, then it's super easy for people to just be in the production environment. If I get sign off in UAT and I've got all sorts of other things coming along and I've got these huge deployments coming together and my items live in UAT for weeks or months on end, which you see unfortunately too often, then you run into that problem of people like living in UAT and not really caring about the production deployment. That's why I say I don't like to have my users in as early as possible. I want them as late in the development point as possible. Once I've done all of my due diligence, I've done my development, I've done my integration, I've done my balancing, and then I should be ready for production. That's the point you insert the users and they get sign off, and then you go to production there. But
Yeah. I agree with you. I just can't win the arguments as well as you, I guess.
I, I think it's a process thing, right?
Oh, it definitely is. Like I
Yeah,
said, there's a lot of I get people to just come back, go, no, come on, I'm the one, you know, this is what I want, and I'm the customer. All right, and that's what's going to happen.
yeah.
This
All
is
right.
this is an interesting question.
Yep.
So yeah, does the deployment pipelines not become an issue when you think of Fabric within branching out to new workspaces via the source control branch out to new workspace? So the, the direct answer, no, it doesn't become an issue because the only branch or the only workspace in this deployment pipeline setup that you have tied to a branch is your development branch.
Hmm.
And so let's say you have your repository set up, you have main. Your main branch is going to be tied to development.
Yep.
Now, out of that development workspace, you're going to use this feature that Christopher is talking about is you click on source control, branch out to new workspace. It will create a new branch in your source control system, create a new workspace and tie that workspace to that new branch. That's your feature or your story level, whichever way you do your work items. That's the branch and workspace that you'll do your next development out of. And this works with either fabric items. You could do it with thin reports. You could do it with models, right? In fact, I do it with all of them. And then you start changing that in that environment. That's your really only probably maybe one dev, two devs get in there, depending on how you're doing team development and everything. But they're going to make the change in there. You do your pull request from that feature branch into main, and then that's what's going to sync back up to your dev workspace. And then after that, to move it forward, you use your deployment pipeline. So you don't have all those other stages tied to a branch in your source control.
Yeah, and I think honestly, I also say, um, this is if you're looking for that pro development experience, that's in the sort like you said, the source control space. That's
Mm-hmm.
not in the deployment pipelines for the most part. Um, now I don't know why my demo environment's choosing not to load my source control stuff right now, but because we're live, so why the heck shouldn't it do that to me?
Oh, and I didn't. I just noticed the time.
Oh yeah, we are nearly at time.
We were having fun. We
Yeah.
didn't. So the other thing that I was hoping to kind of get to,
Hmm.
right, was in the deployment pipelines is you could set up rules. And if you do have things like a semantic model that needs to point at a different source, you could change your source paths by setting up deployment rules.
Hmm.
And I do this quite a bit, say for things that point to SQL databases. I have a dev database, a test database, and it points to different ones. You use the rules to do that.
Yep.
When things like reports move that are connected to a semantic model, those semantic models could be in the other workspaces, and you move that report, it'll automatically rebind those to the right dev test prod semantic model. That's a huge, nice feature. what's going to be coming is the things like the fabric items, the lake houses and stuff. Lake house on a notebook, you could already change. You got to do your first deployments, 2 deployments to get that done because you got to set the GUIDs and stuff. Right. So there's a whole lot more in there.
Yes.
We've got one question to wrap it up.
Yeah. And Chris Smith is mentioning, unless recently fixed, source control does not work with analysis services connected via Live Connect.
Are we saying source control or deployment pipelines? Because when I had analysis, like Azure analysis services, right, I would have my reports pointing to that. And I would assume you could do this even with an on-prem one that's going through the gateway. You're using, it won't be automatic, but you use those rules that I just set up to say, here's the source to change to.
Yeah. And you could definitely do it with rebinding capabilities. Right. And it's not as easy or straightforward as people think it is. That's where that whole DevOps engineer comes into play. And if it's a good piece of functionality, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Move your analysis services into Power BI Premium. If you're on Azure analysis services, there's a process that they already have a migration process. Works great. I've used it before. But if you have to be on-prem, I would look at the deployment rules, and you should be able to change the report source, and it will do that rebinding as part of the deployment pipeline.
Well, Chris is saying that there's a okay, well, maybe we're missing exactly what his issue is. It's not perfect. That's definitely a valid point. There's gaps and issues, and you have to find like workarounds that aren't necessarily ideal all the time. But we are basically at time, so thank you guys once again for an amazing conversation. Kevin, I'll let you take us out today.
Well, I'm going to take us out by kind of saying, join us next week for an interesting discussion that has been going around a lot of different social platforms, right? Is Power BI part of Fabric? Is it not part of Fabric? Is it good, bad that it's in Fabric? We got opinions. I'll just leave it at that.
So if you want to get into the fight, next week is going to be a knockdown, drag out battle and conversation. I am really looking forward to that one and having that conversation with you guys. All right.
All right. Join us.
Thanks all. Have the best day ever. Peace.
Peace.
Combine strategic industry insight and advanced technical expertise to uncover and solve your digital transformation challenges. If you're interested in learning more, check out our website at bakertilly.com/digital.